We are Rogue Media Sports.
A lot can happen between falling in love with a house online and owning it. Between imagining living there and breathing in your new home for the first time. Having an advocate who can help you navigate the complex world of financing, inspections, negotiating, analyzing the market, and talking through any anxieties that may pop up, that can make all the difference. That's what the expertise of a Realtor can do for you. Realtors are members of the National Association of Realtors and bound by a code of ethics, because that's who we are.
You haven't heard about the McCrispy yet? Well, then, you probably haven't heard the sweet silence after the first crispy bite either. Go try it for yourself to hear the best nut sound you've ever heard.
It is the Doomsday podcast. Ed Werder, Matt Mosley. I'm starting to regain some strength. Unlike the Cowboys, a team that we thought Ed would be able to function maybe with what some people call the best backup in the league, and with the turnovers and everything that happened. I mean, Ed, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of this, but you've seen a lot of games. You saw the Wade Phillips swan song where they quit on him. I mean, this, I know we keep saying this, but this really does feel like a very low point, yet they somehow still lead this division. How embarrassing would you say this is for the Cowboys, especially with a Monday Night Football audience?
I mean, I don't have to speculate about how embarrassing it is because they've described it that way, as they should. It's the worst loss that they've had at Texas Stadium. Matches the worst loss, a 28-point loss to the Eagles in 2017. That's a stretch of 96 games that they've played in this stadium, including playoffs. You keep in mind that Dak Prescott's teammates talked all week about how they've dedicated the remainder of the season to their injured quarterback, and I expect that he will deserve far better than they will ultimately deliver, and he certainly deserved better than what they delivered against the Cardinals. I mean, it was nothing but dishonor before defeat. Running back Ezekiel Elliott loses fumbles on consecutive touches. That's 3 times this season that the Cowboys have lost a fumble on consecutive possessions this season. No other team in the entire league, and there are some bad ones, has done that even one time. So, I think with backup Andy Dalton in at quarterback, Mike McCarthy designed the game plan around Ezekiel Elliott. The first 3 plays in the opening possession all went to him, but he fumbles twice. He finishes with 80 total yards. He's yet to rush for 100 yards under McCarthy. It's the first time in his career he's gone 6 games without a 100-yard rushing performance. And the Cowboys have committed 15 turnovers on the season, the most in the NFL, and 11 of them have come at the hands of their best 2 players, Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott.
All right, much, much more to come. Chris Gross, our news producer from Frito Nation Productions. Play the music, sir. All right, it is the Doomsday podcast, Mosley Werder, via Zoom. Sometimes, we may not sound exactly like we always sound, but it's partly because of this Zoom technology. Ed, thank you for looking so nice for the Zoom and the sport coat. One of my favorite writers from the New Yorker misbehaved on Zoom and got caught today, and I know you won't do anything quite like that. But we don't have to get too far in that, although there were some Zoom jokes all over Twitter. And, of course, I had to be part of that as the game unfolded. The Cowboys were a joke tonight, so there was plenty of opportunity to make fun of them. Let's start by something you mentioned right off the top. You're going to do it for Zeke. Before the game, I'm watching Keyshawn have an interview with Zeke. I want to do it for this quarterback. I love this quarterback and all. And Zeke goes out and has maybe one of the poorest performances of his career. Ed, we can put a lot of this on Andy, and I'm fine to do that. He didn't play particularly well. But if you're going to go out there and continually fall behind 21-0, Dak almost would overcome some of those, but even Dak couldn't overcome some of these things. So I don't think it's totally fair just to put all this on the second string quarterback when you have the running back and these other players that need to step up and they didn't get the job done?
Well, every opponent is better than the team that beats itself, and that's what the Cowboys are. They've been at least 14 points down now 5 weeks in a row. I think it's a demonstration. Tonight we really got a sense of just how great Dak Prescott is, because despite enduring these very same things that Andy Dalton experienced tonight for the first time as a starting quarterback for Dallas, Dak's always been able to make a game of it. And they never were able to do that tonight. I mean, they have now been outscored 84-10 following a takeaway. Ezekiel Elliott has lost a career high 4 fumbles, and the opponent has converted all 4 of those into touchdowns. And it was interesting to me that after the game tonight, Mike McCarthy confirmed that Tony Pollard was more involved after Elliott's second lost fumble because of his ball security issues. And, I give Elliott credit for stating the obvious after the game, which is this loss was on him. He accepted responsibility for the failure of the entire team because he, in effect, put them down by 14 points in the second quarter. Elliott, to put this all in context, Elliott's lost 4 fumbles. That's more than all the other top 10 rushers in the NFL combined. They have 3, and they've had nearly 900 more touches than he has. And yet they, as a group, have lost fumbles fewer times so far than Elliott. And this really isn't an aberration. I mean, this has become their identity. For most of this game tonight, they had more turnovers than points. They're minus 12 in turnover margin this season. That's the worst for the Cowboys through 6 games since their first year, 60 years ago. 1960, Tom Landry's first team was minus 15 at this point. They didn't win a single game. And so that's the thing. They're not going to win. I don't care what division they play in. They're not going to win if they don't fix that. And I think if it was something they could fix, that it would have been done by now. And it was interesting also that after the game, McCarthy made the point that, hey, we emphasize ball security. And, our first 3 periods in practice, employed drills designed to create awareness about this part of the game because it's so critically important to determining your success as a football team. And he actually said, maybe we're overcoaching it. Maybe we're creating too much awareness about it. Not that I think that's actually the problem. McCarthy's saying basically we're too good at coaching these turnovers. They're actually now happening. We're so good at it. But it's ridiculous. And obviously, the defense is bad. And then you put them on a short field all the time and they give away touchdown. I mean, all of Zeke's turnover, all 4 of his fumbles have either been in his own end of the field or very near within 2 yards of midfield. So you're putting a bad defense on a short field. That's a recipe for exactly what we've seen 5 out of 6 times this season from this team.
What was the number? I think you had it. You always have the great numbers, but I think I saw something after the game where it was like the points Cowboys have given up off turnovers this year. Wasn't it like something crazy like 84 points? Or, I mean, it's just like they've been outscored 84-10. And coming into the game, I think maybe the tweet you're referring to is they'd given up the most points in the league at 160. And exactly a third of those had come off turnovers. And like I said, you're not going to win if you're turning the football over 4 more times than your opponent and they're getting free points off of it like they do. It's not like this defense is good enough to get the ball back or limit the scoring. They give up a touchdown almost every time. Yeah, I think you have to I think you're right about the defense. I mean, Ed, didn't you sort of feel it was almost shocking the 3 and outs that we saw from both teams early in this game? They, in a sense, missed an opportunity because it seems like most teams strike pretty quickly against them. And at least early, they said maybe there was some thought that Kyler Murray was almost too hyped up. But the defense was sort of doing its job early. And, of course, the Cowboys didn't capitalize at all. Gave it right back to them.
Yeah, they didn't capitalize. And then once they started turning the ball over, it was over. I mean, I don't think Andy Dalton had much of a chance right from the start. And that's quite a statement given that the Cardinals lost one of the best pass rushers in football. In fact, the guy who has the most sacks, the most forced fumbles in the league over the past, 6 or 7 years, and Chandler Jones suffered a torn biceps injury, had surgery this week, out for the year. Imagine if he was playing. But the thing the Cardinals did have that was a problem for the Cowboys, really right from the start of the game, was they had 9 different players who had a sack coming into this game. And so you're playing a backup quarterback in Andy Dalton behind, an offensive line that's starting a rookie center. They don't have their starting 2 tackles. And then they lost Zach Martin during the game to a concussion. And so now you've got problems with them knowing who they're picking up, him trying to identify who the 4th and 5th rushers are going to be. And it was a bad situation from the start. In fact, Dalton almost got sacked for a safety on one of their early possessions in the game. And on the same play, he nearly threw an interception for a pick 6 trying to get rid of it. And so it could have been even worse, and it could have happened much earlier.
I thought his play where he evaded that safety was one of his best plays of the night. I really did. I thought that was a decent incompletion because he threw it out there, and I think Zeke or somebody dropped it. It was a disaster of epic proportions. 38-10. Cowboys lose. They get a meaningless TD at the end. Ed, this team, if we really want to be honest about it, they fall to 2-4. They could very easily be an 0-6 team right now. So any thought that they're the superior team in the NFC East, that's by the 1-loss record only, which I guess is all that counts. But I don't think we can sit there and look at them and go, they're that much better than the Giants or the Eagles or any of these other teams.
Certainly without Dak Prescott, I don't think they are. And any thought that, Leighton Vander Esch's return was going to make a significant difference, I think was quickly dispelled. They're behind in the game at the half, 21-3. They come out the first drive of the second half, and Andy Dalton throws a pick. And then the defense gives up a 79-yard touchdown drive, Kyler Murray scoring unchallenged. And there were signs of quit in that drive, I thought, early in the third quarter. Kenyon Drake had runs of 20 and 22 yards. Those were his 2 longest runs of the season, of course, until his 69-yarder at the very end of the game. So he had his 3 longest runs of the year against the Cowboys defense tonight with Leighton Vander Esch back in the lineup.
Yeah. And then Jalen Smith, a man who loves celebrating, plays, but we saw him. He was a part of some of these things that happened. And then the last one, Ed, was just sort of a give up. They're just trying to end the game and be somewhat kind about it. And the Cardinals are just running out the clock, and they get a long touchdown to Drake. That was embarrassing as well. Ed, back to the offensive line a little bit. Wasn't that amazing? You talked about they had a lot of players that have sacks, but Budda Baker is, I don't think I totally remember that. You probably did. Is like the highest paid safety in the game. I hear people talk about how he's underrated, but all those guys looked amazing against the Cowboys. To your point, they would just line somebody up like Budda Baker or whoever, edge of the line, and generally that's a running back. That's somebody's responsibility. Even sometimes it's got to be the quarterback's responsibility. Okay, I got to get the ball out of here because they got more. I got to go a hot route. He was. I know Andy didn't have much of a chance, but boy, if they're going to block for him like that and play for him like that, he can't do anything for you. He can't function. He can't function in an offense like that. And
the thing is the unfamiliar role to him is being the backup and coming off the bench like he did last week, and he succeeded at that. Had the highest, I think, 81.8% accuracy on his passes, which is the best for a Dallas non-starter in a win in the history of the franchise. So the normal thing is what he experienced this week, which was knowing he was a starter for the rest of the season, getting ready to play the game in that capacity, having an extra day of preparation. And, Mike McCarthy said before the game that he thought that extra day of preparation was really important because this was a team that emotionally needed to transition to get past what happened to Dak, their undisputed leader and consistent playmaker, and transition to Andy Dalton, accept that reality for the rest of the year. And then, they come out and play like this. And, Dalton had to recognize that he can't hold the football as long as he wants to. And I think he really failed in that regard to get the ball out of his hands. I mean, they lost Zach Martin to a concussion. So Connor Williams, who was a perceived weak link of this offensive line at left guard, he's the last remaining starter on the offensive line, including the tight end. They've lost 2 tackles, a center, a guard, and their tight end, and their quarterback. So I think that just gives you a sense of how incredible it is that Dak Prescott was scoring 40 points a week and throwing 50 passes a game and putting up 500 yards of offense in the similar circumstances to what Dalton inherited tonight.
Yeah. And on the other sideline, Ed, wasn't it interesting that though his numbers looked awful, especially at the start, Kyler Murray started this game 3 for 12 and got a little bit better as the game went on, but only ended up with like 9 or 10 completions in this game. Yet, compared to anything the Cowboys were doing, he looked scintillating. You know what I mean? The fact that all the running and all the things he could do, they had 0 chance against him in the open field. And it was just 2 different things. That team had a couple of really bad losses before they beat the Jets, talking about Arizona. And yet everything about that team looked joyful, fun on offense. And you know what? Hopkins didn't even do anything in that game until the game had already been decided. And then he went on that one hellaciously long pass play. But he wasn't a big part of the plan. I mean, it was just like they were able to put a beat down on the Cowboys with a quarterback who went like 9 for 20-something.
Because of the turnovers. I mean, yeah, Kyler Murray completed 9 passes and the Cardinals still scored 38 points. I mean, Murray's the first quarterback to win a game by 28 or more points with a completion percentage below 40% in 15 years. The last guy to achieve that was Eli Manning against Washington in 2005. 38 points is matches the highest point total for Cliff Kingsbury as a head coach in the NFL. And the Cowboys, I think the interesting thing was in the fourth quarter, they were so desperate to disguise the magnitude of this loss that renowned analytics wizard Mike McCarthy opted to kick a 58-yard field goal down 25 points. Now, according to Elias, that's the first time since the 1970 merger that a team attempted a field goal of 58-plus yards when they were down 20 or more points. This is, Mike McCarthy and his belief in analytics out there trying to make the score look not as bad as we all know it was.
An embarrassment, and you're right. I mean, even when they were going to make it, try that long field goal. I can almost remember a Garrett moment like that 3 or 4 years into his tenure, where something similar like that. Let's just try to make the score look a little better or something like that.
Let's put some lipstick on this pig.
Yeah, and. As you look at me right now, that's what I'd like to do to myself. Although I'm gaining some strength now. Ed, as you might guess, Glenn Stretch Smith, and you were busy writing a TV piece that's going to air, I believe, sometime tomorrow morning. When can we see that, Ed? By the way, Get Up, would that be on the show? Get Up.
I think it'll be on SportsCenter. First SportsCenter show in the morning, probably 7 a.m. local time.
Should we all get up early and watch it together?
We should all get up early. Make sure you're watching the right show, though. Don't watch Get Up. Watch SportsCenter. Still in the press. I'm actually still in the press box over at AT&T Stadium right now.
Do you still see some people writing on deadline?
There are other journalists in the area.
I think you're giving them a lot to call them that. It is Mosley and Werder back together again, and we're happy to do it. But Ed, you're going to be pleased to hear this. Glenn Stretch Smith, as you might guess, was very worked up, and there were some Fs handed out, and there were some Fs to people that usually don't get outs, and the coaching staff So you're going to enjoy hearing this, and then Ed, you're going to.
I hope there's no profanities. I hope there's no profanities.
I don't believe he used foul language. I think he was on his best behavior.
He's been wanting to fire Mike Nolan since the loss in Seattle, so I can imagine how apocalyptic he is right now.
Without further ado, here are stretch marks. And, boy, he's going to be really rough today. First, I did want to tell you, the original light beer, Miller Lite, has always been there to bring people together through Miller time, whether you're toasting to friends near or far. Great taste is always close by. Right now, enjoying a Miller Lite with friends looks different for everyone, but staying connected is just as important. Glenn Stretch Smith, would you say about the second quarter would have been a good time to pop open a Miller Lite with a few friends?
Yeah, and I think you need to drink about a case of them or until the world looks flat. That'd be perfect. Just drink them till the world looks flat. Miller Lite.
Of course, it's the only beer of the Cowboys. 30-year partnership with the team dating back to 1991 when the team was still playing at Texas Stadium. You remember those days, Stretch. And, rough night tonight. What do you call a group of grown men and women who get together every week, proudly wearing the star, to share a 3-hour-long ritual of cheering, shouting at the TV, and raising their Miller Lite and yelling, "How about the boys?" Stretch, do you think anybody yelled that tonight? Maybe mock.
No, I think there was some yelling it, but there was a few words that came after and some that would make a sailor blush before.
During the 2020 season, Miller Lite celebrating 60 years of Cowboys greatness. Pick up special marked packaging, Cowboys 60th anniversary imagery and logo at participating retailers. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 96 calories, 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces. Okay, let's get right to it. It is time for Stretch Marks. Stretch, you were at the stadium tonight. You did the pregame show for Channel 8. That's Del Hansen, the whole gang out there. I'm sure Trahan was around. Maybe Mike, the man who loves a good three-piece suit. They were all running around out there. Stretch, just overall thoughts after a 38-10 embarrassment. There have been some low points in this franchise, but let's just look back on the last 5-10 years. Have there been any lower points than what we're thinking about here after watching that one?
Absolutely not, Matt. I mean, this is literally a situation where I look and I start to think about going back, taking a quick look at the film, putting a letter grade down for guys, and I find myself asking the question, is this really pro football? Is this really what we're talking about, pro football? And I saw it here when we were 5-11 and we had to play Clint Sterner at quarterback. And I've been through some really lean and rough years, but never have I seen anything quite like I'm seeing right now, where the Cowboys went out one time on special teams and they thought they'd throw him a real dokey-oak and put 10 on the field. Just said to hell with it. Let's put 10 out there and see if we can catch them off guard. So I just haven't seen anything like this that's as low as this is, and then a lack of effort from the players. I don't see any – I just don't see guys playing hard. And you know what? At this level, that's just inexcusable, Matt.
Stretch, can you describe for our listeners what I look like right now on this Zoom session, since we're not doing video for them?
Yeah, well, he's probably about 3 months unshaven, about 4 months without a haircut. I mean, to hell with him. He looks like a damn chia pet. I don't know how to say it any different than that.
What about the neck brace? Not a bad look, huh?
No, it's not a bad look. It's kind of strengthening your Adam's apple. I can see it protrude through the neck brace.
All right, let's roll through this, as painful as it might be, and let's start with a group that much maligned, although Zach Martin gets hurt early in this game, and you're left with the likes of Knight. And, I mean, you got Connor became like the veteran of the bunch. I mean, you think about he used to be the young guy. He became the veteran. You got Biotish, you got Terrence, or you got somebody still. You've got Brandon Knight out there at left tackle. And then here comes McGovern, one of our presidential candidates from a few years ago. What did you make of that group? I mean, was it hard to even make a judgment on that group as pitiful as this was?
Well, yeah, it was bad. And obviously, to put Connor McGovern out there, that they look overmatched. The thing that frustrates me, Matt, is that you're playing all down the line guys. However, Kellen Moore kept calling, routes where they were getting 5 out and throwing quick game. I don't understand that. Then, Buda Baker's coming off the edge and they're, Vance Joseph, the defensive coordinator at Arizona, is running all kinds of blitzes at you. And you have guys that are completely overmatched up front. It makes you question, what are the coaches upstairs telling you? Are they saying, hey, that's a hell of an idea right here. Let's get 5 out and see if we can get completely overmatched instead of running, a 7-man protection, maybe even an 8-man protection. I don't understand it. But overall, I mean, this group that just gave you at best a D effort, Matt. And it's a borderline failing grade because they couldn't run the ball. But I can't really give guys an F that probably haven't practiced all week and don't have an opportunity to work together.
All right, let's look at the quarterback. Andy Dalton, thought of as one of the better backup quarterbacks. And kind of to your point, a couple of times he looked up and just, the left tackle couldn't even get out of his stance, and he didn't have much of a chance. Sometimes, obviously, he should have had a pick six there. That other interception, that looked like maybe a missed call by the referee, that first interception there. What did you make of Andy Dalton, who went like 34 for 54, but threw for about 266, but really didn't do much anything?
Yeah, I mean, that's all you need to say, Matt, is him throwing the ball 54 times. Should have never been that. I mean, you're not going to win doing that. And I don't care who you're playing. If you're asking him to throw the ball 54 times with this offensive line, you don't have a chance to win. He threw 2 interceptions, should have thrown 3. One of those should have been a pick six that was dropped by Drake early in the game. This is one of those deals where, and again, it's hard for me to be grading wise. It's hard to come down on a guy who's just had 1 week of work with this offense. He's been in the offense for a while, but I'm talking about really working with the receivers, understanding where to settle guys with the ball, understanding how to throw some of those seam routes and to do some of those things. But overall, I'm barely giving him as well. I'm barely giving him a D. You can't turn the football over. You've got to take care of the football in those situations. And I know they're cutting guys loose on you, but, bottom line, Matt, you can't throw interceptions in that situation. So I'm giving him a D.
All right, D for Dalton, D for the O-line, and a guy, Stretch, that I know you always seem to think he brings his lunch pail with him, but I would say more than anybody on this team, what Zeke Elliott did out there tonight, I don't know if they're going to win or if they would have even competed, but he made sure with those 2 fumbles that they were not even anywhere near in that game, and pretty poor performance.
Yeah, and I do like Zeke. I mean, I've always commended him on the job he does in pass protection. I've always commended him on the routes. He got an F tonight, Matt. You can't fumble the ball in those situations. You cannot do it. He knew the game was going to be on him. He knew he had to go out and do some things that were above and beyond. I mean, there's no other way to put it. I can't style point it. I can't do anything but say it's an F. He's got to take an F for really, and it looked like his Shiva getter was out. I mean, I'm going to tell you that. I mean, just him coming off the field, he's got to be the guy that they paid that money to. And right now, and really this year, and I get it, some of his linemen are down. He has not run the football like I've seen him run it in the past. And it's hard to give it to him, but I'm giving him an F. And you know what? I'm sticking to it. There ain't going to be no curve into that grade.
All right, there you heard it. An F, probably the first F ever given on this show on the Doomsday podcast to Zeke Elliott. All right, receivers and tight ends. Looked like Andy leaned on Dalton Schultz quite a bit early, and then finally, made some connections with the receivers, but a big drop, of course, by Michael Gallup in the first half on a play that could have at least kept the Cowboys within striking distance.
Yeah, that's a big drop, and it came at a really difficult time because, like you said, he catches the ball there. It's a 21-7 football game at the half. Dallas gets the ball to start the second half and comes right out and goes right down the field. So, that's a big drop. Amari Cooper, CD, they did okay. Cedric Wilson did okay. I mean, Schultz, he is starting to kind of come into his own and get to be that field player. It almost looks like he's taken a few years of coaching from Jason Witten and understanding what to do in the routes. But I gave this group a D. I just across the board offensively, I gave D's except for the running back. I gave an F. Really, really poor offensive performance tonight by this football team.
All right, Cowboys lose 38-10. We're doing the grades on stretch marks. Glenn Stretch Smith. We're doing this via Zoom. And Frito Nation Productions back on the scene. And the young Chris Gross, a great radio man from 103.3, has taken over at the helm as our producer. We're glad to have him. Stretch, I wanted to hit up that defense a little bit. Let's go up front to the back. Let's start with the up front. You've been very critical of Dontari Poe's play, and I think for good reason. But the rest of the gang, including the young Hamilton, who showed up out of nowhere, and number 78 out there. What'd you make of this crew?
Well, you know what? And I think it was 79, Matt, I want to say, unless my eyes were bad, but it could have been 78, 79. Anyway, his jersey fit him a little snug down there. He's got one of those navels that looks like it'd hold one of those 3-liter Dr. Peppers you pound down every afternoon for lunch. But at least he got out there and made a tackle. That's one more tackle than Dontari Poe makes. I think Dontari Poe, they're paying him about $5 million. They're paying Hamilton about $600,000. So give me 5 of him instead of Dontari Poe, who right now can't play dead in the John Wayne Western. He's not doing anything. He's not getting anything out of him. I did see some. The positive thing is I saw some things out of Dorrance Armstrong. I think Alden's still a good player, serviceable guys. DeMarcus, I think, is still looks to be a little nicked up. This front, guys, is not good. I want to try to look for positives in here, but as a whole, I gave this defensive front a C- tonight.
None of these guys seem real capable of trying to corral Kyler Murray, who showed off and, I think ended up with 9 completions tonight. And again, they still won going away. He had the one deep ball, which was a nice play by that Christian Kirk, the former Aggie. But linebackers, I know you love seeing Jalen Smith do that thing where he kind of acts like he's bowling or something. Love that celebration.
Yeah, I'd like somebody to shoot him with a crossbow the next time he steps out there and does it. But I'm going to go to Van Der Esch. I thought Van Der Esch, first game back, showed me some things of why he's a good player. And because of that, I gave them a C+. But again, guys, they're not taking correct angles in what they're doing, and I don't know if it's the scheme. I'm not pertinent to the calls, But I saw some things, obviously, and that's the one positive on the defensive side, or there's a couple. But I thought that Van Der Esch did some things early in the game that showed me, okay, wow, that's why they need his length and his ability to run sideline to sideline. I'm going to go right to the defensive backs, Matt.
All right.
I mean, Worley. Let's not even remotely think this guy can play. He can't play. I mean, he cannot play. He sat and tried to catch Kirk running a 9 route, and the guy just ran right by him. I mean, I don't even know what that technique was. It was almost like a sit and catch, and then the guy just released inside, and he let him go. I'm giving Worley an F. I did see some decent things from Diggs and Jordan Lewis early in the game, and that keeps this group, along with Donovan Wilson, that keeps the secondary from at least getting an F overall. Overall, I'm going to give them a D. But boy, this is a bad bunch. Now, will they get any better with Awuzie in there? I question that. This is personnel-wise, they have done a very poor job of signing free agents and of drafting at this position, and it has finally caught up to them, and it's caught up to them in a really ugly, bad way.
Did on special teams, did that 58-yard attempt, did that look like something one of us might have done at one of those Austin municipal courses you used to play?
There ain't no question. One of those Blue Ridge golf balls that you hit with one of those Patty Berg 7-irons. Absolutely, absolutely, that's what it looked like. I mean, it looked like a hard. It wasn't a shank. It kind of looked like just an outside in where you just cut a big old smile on the golf ball, and just. I don't even know why they attempted that. I mean, special teams wise, I mean, they've given Fossil a ton of money, and golly, I mean, they had 10 out there tonight in one of those situations. So very confusing, very frustrating overall as a coaching staff. And I'm going to grade the coaching staff probably for the first time overall. I've been hard on Mike Nolan. I'm going to continue to say they got out leveraged again tonight. Really, I mean, poor schematically. And now I'm on the head coach. I mean, the head coach, give him an F. I mean, they're terrible. And the product they put out on the field for Monday Night Football tonight, I mean, it really does. It makes me question, is this pro football, Matt? It is really what we're looking at, pro football.
Well, I did like that windbreaker he was wearing. Mike will put on a decent windbreaker or something, but I thought it was pretty poor, and they didn't. Even the guys on the broadcast, as you saw, Stretch talked about, they didn't think this team even seemed energized at the start. And if you can't get ready to go Monday Night Football, when can you get ready?
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I mean, you've got the national spotlight, the national stage, and you show up and just flat lay an egg. I mean, it really is. I mean, that's a hard watch. And again, you question, guys, is that pro football? Is that really pro football? And that's a hard thing to say in this situation.
Yeah, I would say so. And you don't say that lightly, because as a longtime coach and a scout, you do have great respect for those folks, but you do call it like you see it. Stretch, I appreciate it. I hope you have a good evening and get some rest, and you'll be ready to do your radio show tomorrow at 10 a.m. down there at ESPN Central Texas, all through the hinterlands of Austin and wherever else we're on, College Station and Waco.
Temple, Texas. Belton, Texas. All right,
Temple,
Matt. Hey,
Belton.
Yeah. You guys have a great night. Appreciate it, fellas.
There he goes. Thank you, Stretch. There he goes. Glenn Stretch Smith with stretch marks. And I also want to tell you, winning season returns at MyBookie. Winning season means doubling your first deposit. Winning season means insane props, epic bonuses, and the craziest cross-sport wagers at MyBookie. Winning season means watching live sports and betting live sports all season long. Rejoice. The NFL has returned. That means action-packed Sundays and huge cash prizes. Get in on the action. Use the promo code Doomsday and double your first deposit. New players get up to $1,000 in free play, designed to add more excitement to the sports you love and the games you bet. Bet with the best this NFL season for your chance to win big. Use the promo code Doomsday and double your first deposit. Your winning season begins today, only at MyBookie.
Those were your stretch marks, and Matt Mosley is going to get himself to bed so he can continue his amazing recovery from his bicycle accident. He did far more in terms of contributing to this edition of the Doomsday podcast than was expected of him. Of course, I expect very little at this point of Matt in any regard, but he did exceed our expectations, and I think that's noteworthy. The Cowboys, however, have not lived up to our expectations, and maybe they will the next couple of weeks because, amazingly, despite their loss, the Cowboys are in first place in the NFC East with a 2-4 record. In fact, they've won twice as many games as anybody else in the division. They're the first team with a losing record to have a division lead through week 6 since the 1970 merger. This is historic incompetence across the entire division. In fact, 6 individual NFL teams have as many wins as the entire NFC East. The NFC East teams, Washington, New York, Philadelphia, and Dallas, have combined for 5 wins. Teams that have 5 wins in the NFL right now, it's the Seahawks, the Steelers, the Titans, the Chiefs, the Ravens, and the Bears. The Cowboys will probably host one of those teams at home in the playoffs in round 1 if they can at least compete in their own inept division. And it's worth noting that the Cowboys' next 2 games this week on a short week of preparation at Washington and then at Philadelphia, both teams also decimated by injuries and plagued with football incompetence at a historic level. So those should be some pretty even matchups there. And the Cowboys can look forward to the potential return of defensive end pass rusher Randy Gregory, eligible to resume his NFL career. He hasn't played, I think he's only played 28 games in his career since he was a second-round draft pick. He's been out for about a year and a half, so the Cowboys can put him back in the lineup and see if he can create any havoc and perhaps a turnover or two that would negate this incredible minus 12 turnover ratio margin that has doomed the Cowboys to this point in the season. So again, we continue to hope that Mark Friedman will accelerate his recovery, that Matt Mosley will continue his own. And as for the Cowboys, well, they're anyone's guess. So from AT&T Stadium, good night, everybody.
A lot can happen between falling in love with a house online and owning it. Between imagining living there and breathing in your new home for the first time. Having an advocate who can help you navigate the complex world of financing, inspections, negotiating, analyzing the market, and talking through any anxieties that may pop up, that can make all the difference. That's what the expertise of a Realtor can do for you. Realtors are members of the National Association of Realtors and bound by a code of ethics, because that's who we are.
You haven't heard about the McCrispy yet? Well, then, you probably haven't heard the sweet silence after the first crispy bite either. Go try it for yourself to hear the best nut sound you've ever heard.